Most of what we see on social media is now generated by AI. Any social media now, even a newspaper website, about 80% of what you read comes straight from LLMs. Now we have the ability to generate essentially an unlimited amount of this manipulative materials to keep you happy all day for the rest of your life. Having grown up with this, you might hear your friends talking and you're not used to the fact that language is a speech act from another person.
My dear friend, Fintan Nagle, welcome to Sangre y Suerte.
Hi, Mateus. Thank you very much for having me on. It's great to be here in the studio. Thank you.
So many people don't know this, but you were the first person that recorded here. Remember, we did some trials.
Yeah, we did a proof of concept. I was the guinea pig.
Yeah. And nothing worked. Like we had the headphones were like off sync and the cameras were all wrong. It was, but it was good because we learned a lot.
It was our trial run. Yeah, and now here we are for the real thing.
Yeah, man. I just want to say I really admire you, man, and all I've learned with you across the years has been amazing. Like,
oh, thank you.
Besides a friend,
that's really kind of you to say.
Besides a friend, I consider you one of my mentors, one of my intellectual mentors. You've taught me so much about research, about thinking, about writing, and of course all the fun we've had over the years. It's been fantastic.
We have had a lot of fun, and thank you, because I also consider you my mentor in philosophy. So we have a co-mentor relationship, which is always great.
Amazing, man. And all the sessions we've had.
We have eaten a lot of Chinese food together as well.
A lot of Chinese food.
Maybe we'll do an episode from inside 72 China once.
They have to sponsor us, man. They would be. Imagine if we get them to sponsor us. That would be great, man.
We'd have to edit out a lot of the just eating food. So.
Yeah. So this episode, not this episode, the podcast, the whole podcast concept is to talk a bit about your life story and a bit about where you landed in life, like which is academia and cognitive science, of course, and AI and. But starting with a bit about your background, can you tell me a bit about where you were born and how was your first few years, and how it got you eventually interested in academia?
Yeah, great. So I grew up in the UK. I think I became an adult a bit later on, but I did my kind of reaching adolescence in the UK. Then I lived in France for a bit on the continent.
How many years? How old were you?
3.5 years. So during my teenage years, I did high school in Europe, so I can speak French. Sometimes I wish it was Spanish instead.
Yeah, but now you're doing Spanish, man. You're doing great with Spanish.
Yeah, I can understand Spanish pretty well, but I still have a way to go in terms of actually speaking.
We have to go to Mexico, man. I have to take you to Mexico and have some fun there.
I would love to visit Mexico, yeah. So after high school, I didn't want to go to university in France because it's very hardcore. You have to work on Saturdays. You have to do what's called prépa first, the école préparatoire. You have to spend a couple of years getting ready for uni. And then you can't really focus on the topics that you want to study. So I moved back to the UK and did a degree at the University of York.
University of York?
That was in computer science and biology.
Computer science and biology.
And I eventually ended up moving to London, where I did a master's also in biology, in the biology department.
Okay.
And then ended up moving into psychology and cognitive science, which is where I am now. I would describe myself as a cognitive scientist, which is a bit like a psychologist without all the Freud stuff.
Okay. And about the times you were traveling and speaking different languages, do you think that played a role into your interests to getting into academia? Because you learned English and French early on and understood two cultures. Do you think that played a role?
So being bilingual is definitely something that helps us cognitively. I didn't know this at the time, of course. So I was growing up learning French, but there's huge advantages to being bilingual. So I'm sure it did help. I'm not sure I particularly have used all the advantages of being bilingual. I don't really use French in my work very much, for example, but I'm sure it helps. Yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah.
And we can also talk about, of course, other languages, because we've got maths, which is a language as well.
Okay.
And we've got programming languages, which we can see as different kinds of language. I actually just yesterday, it's interesting that you're raising this, because I saw a very interesting seminar. It's at Uppsala in Finland. And it's a seminar on what they call alien languages. And this is not science or science fiction, it's actually philosophy. It's the idea that there could be other completely new languages that are completely unlike what we use now. Okay. But they could be good at representing the world as well in completely different ways.
Alien languages in the sense of extraterrestrial life, or just alien like...
So a really good example is when I was learning Spanish. So in English, we have one verb, to be or not to be. That is the question.
That is the question.
And when I sat down to learn Spanish as a 12-year-old, you guys have two words for to be, which is absolutely, it definitely required some mental rotation.
It's crazy.
Just to get used to it. Because there's one for what you are all the time, and there's one for what you are just now.
And ser y estar. Right?
Yeah, so the most simple concept in language, really, the idea that something is something else, or like I am hungry, for example, that now has two verbs in Spanish. So you can imagine another language, for example, where there's no verb for to be.
Yeah, it's really a strange thing, right? Like the way we understand and use language is essentially what we can report. Okay, there we go.
Hi, Lara.
There's always a moment where she wants to do this at every episode. This one was really fast. Oh, there we go.
That's great.
Yeah. So you haven't been using French for a while?
Pas particulièrement, non. J'ai parlé français il y a une semaine. Il y avait un boom à ma maison chez les voisins. Ils ont fait un boom.
I don't understand anything.
My neighbors, they have a party and I speak a bit of French.
Oh man! And writing, did you get to write some French or no?
Not particularly.
Not particularly.
I think the last time that I wrote any French was in one of my exams as an 18-year-old.
Oh, okay. And do you have family in France? You have some family there,
My
right?
parents live there.
Your parents live there, and you go often, or?
Yeah, so it's very easy to get to France from the UK. So I just fly over from Stansted. It's only an hour or so.
Yeah, and we eventually drive as well, right? There's a ferry. Have you ever taken that ferry?
Once, well, I have taken the ferry actually, but I only drove to Paris, which is reasonably manageable. Got back the same day, but to reach the south of France, it would be a classic GT car cross-European trip. It would take about 9 hours.
Oh man, because I want to get my license. As I was telling you, man, and I eventually want to do those. But I'm a bit scared of driving on the other side. For us, it's kind of weird. Have you ever driven on the other side? Oh, well, when you cross the border, you have to drive on the other side.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard when you're driving a car from your old country, where the steering wheel is still on your old side. But if the steering wheel's on the other side as well, and the brake lever is on the other side, and you are sitting on the other side, then I think it's a lot easier.
Yeah. I think the brain kind of clicks or something. It just works. But of course, I have to practice because it's a safety issue and stuff.
Yeah, and good luck getting your license. I think we have one of the hardest driving tests in the world.
Really? Oh my God.
But that's actually good because it gives you more safety, of course, and it'll make you more prepared for what's going on.
Yeah, man. To be honest, I'm really happy with my bike, but life. I have to be, and of course in the winter, I have to be ready for, traveling.
And you have to transport the family.
Of course, exactly.
Lara,
Exactly. And Lara, exactly.
And as we know, she doesn't like to walk when she doesn't have to.
Yeah. Jesus. So going back to the choices, right? Like your life choices, you eventually, so you did a University of York, you did cognitive science.
Yes, I was there for 4 years. Then I moved to UCL in London. I was there for 8 years. I did 4 years PhD, and then I worked for 4 years as a postdoctoral researcher as well.
But you had to do a master's as well. Oh, the master was in York.
I did actually 2 masters. I did one in York, which I chose to do, and then another one in London that was on the front of my PhD program. So I signed up to a 4-year masters plus PhD program.
That's very cool.
I really recommend doing this to anyone who's thinking about doing a PhD, because you can rotate through different labs. You can spend a year while you're doing your masters talking to the different supervisors or investigators you might want to do your PhD with, and then you can choose one that you get on well.
That's very good. Yeah. And of course, there's a lot of practicing, right? The master's is still taught, right? Instead of research.
Yeah, so we had about 6 months of taught lectures. We'd all show up at 9 a.m. and learn about statistics.
Okay.
And then we had a few months of these lab rotations, and we would do an individual project, 10,000 words or so inside each of the labs.
And were you required to code, or was that a passion thing you did on your own?
I was doing a doctoral training program in modeling biological complexity in the Center for Mathematics, Physics, and the Life Sciences in computational biology. So there was a bit of programming.
Man, wow. But you also coded on your free time. You had your own passion project.
So definitely in between studying, I did. So the first program that I ever wrote, I think I was 15, and this was back in the days of dial-up, and I really enjoyed reading the Garfield cartoons with the orange cat who loves lasagna.
Who loves lasagna, and Odie was a dog.
In the days of dial-up, you had to click next, and then you had to wait kind of 10 or 15 seconds, and the Garfield cartoon would load very slowly, and this was really frustrating because I wanted to get through and read all of them.
Okay.
So I wrote a program to just download them all into a folder. It was incredibly simple. It was only about 4 lines, and it just had to generate the next date and then try and download that file and put it in a folder.
Wow, you did that on when you
used AppleScript. So
you were 15 when you did that.
but it was only AppleScript is designed to do this, to help you do tasks like this in Mac OS. So it was very easy. It wasn't a real programming language. Then I thought I was great at programming, so I tried to solve Sudoku.
Okay, with programming.
With C++.
That's C++.
And at this point, I couldn't even solve Sudoku using my own brain. So I didn't get very
That was a bit of a challenge, I was going to say.
That was about 6 months before undergraduate. So I just didn't do any programming until I got to uni after that, I think.
Okay, man. And then, like on your PhD on molecular biology, what kind of programming will you have to, in what language?
We were looking at face perception. We used mostly MATLAB, but you could also do all this in Python now. I think you'd use Python instead. We looked at pictures of faces. We represented each one as just a list of numbers, because you can do that whenever you have an image. You can just represent it as a list of numbers. And then we used a technique called PCA, Principal Component Analysis, which is actually, this is one of the heavy hitters in statistics. This is one of these techniques that if you start doing analysis, you'll be using absolutely all over the place for everything.
Wow.
It's a multi-dimensional, it's a dimensionality reduction technique. So it takes complex data with lots and lots of dimensions. For example, if you're looking at cars, you might have the engine size and speed and the number of people and the size of the tires and the weight and so on. So you might have 100 statistics for each car. And you can't plot those all in a 2D graph.
Yeah, no,
you'd need 100 dimensions.
Dimensions.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
So you just feed all this into principal component analysis or another dimensionality reduction process. And
PCA?
So it expresses each car in just 2D or 3D if you want. And then you can plot them all in a nice 2D graph. And because you've done this, all of the similar cars go together. So you can look, there's a cluster over here and they're all the SUVs, and there's a cluster down here, which is all the sports cars and so on.
There's an AI technique called clustering. Is it related to this?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are all ways that we use to make sense of very complex data with lots and lots of details.
Wow. And you mentioned representing a face with numbers. So a string of numbers. And what do the numbers mean? So
if it's in black and white, each number is just how bright that pixel is.
Oh, okay.
So if you had an image with only 4 pixels, you couldn't express very much, but you'd need 4 numbers. If you go up to 10 by 10, then there's 100 pixels, and definitely you can do something with a 10 by 10 image. You can write letters, or you could show a little face or something. You could definitely code happy face and sad face.
Yes.
You could get all of the different ranges of emotions.
Like a dog or whatever. Yeah.
And then you put these images into principal component analysis, and it works on faces as well. So the first principal component is gender. That's the first thing that it finds, and it just spits this out of the algorithm. It shows you a variation in gender. And once it's found this principal component, you can then drag the slider. So you can take a face and you can drag the slider for gender that PCA has given you, and you can make it either more female. So I could take a picture of you
and make
then
it
put it in PCA space and just change the sliders, and your beard would go away and so on.
Yeah, which is kind of a delicate subject, right? Because it's kind of sometimes it makes mistakes, I suppose. It's very hard.
Yeah, well, we always have to be careful about using these things to make decisions in life.
Yeah, like a camera that detects something at an airport or something, right?
Yeah, we've seen, of course, the classic example of AI bias going back to the very first webcams that were shipped with, I think it was HP computers. Don't sue me if it's not. And they didn't recognize dark-skinned people.
Oh,
the face detection just didn't work for dark-skinned people.
Yeah.
Clearly very annoying.
Yes. I've seen some of these examples in like the TV, that's the first few TVs, the first few color TVs, and also very advanced, quote unquote, AI-based cameras also had this thing. So yeah, those are the things that I think you and I have had. So how long have we known each other? For like 10 years, I guess. 2015?
About 2015.
Yeah, when I came to London for the first time. 10 years, man. Can you imagine that?
Good stuff. We've got a lot done.
Do we have pictures from when we met? I don't remember.
I've got some mental pictures.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've got something somewhere.
When I was at UCL as well, and it was Lillian Shapiro that introduced us via email, remember?
Yeah, thank you, Lillian, if you're watching, for bringing us together.
For bringing us together, man. And we've had so many conversations about of course, about consciousness and about psychology and philosophy, but also about the dangers of not paying attention to what technology does, right? And I just want to get a few of your ideas. I know you could talk for like 10 hours about this, but like, what do you think about AI these days and what people think AI is, what it actually is, and what it does? Could you speak a bit about this?
This is, of course, the topic that's on everyone's minds these days. Everyone is just raving to talk about it, and especially my students. So I have about between 200 and 400 students usually go on different courses.
Okay.
All the courses are getting larger, and we have to double stream some of the lectures.
Can you mention where you're teaching now or no?
Yeah, I teach at Imperial and also a bit at City University of London as well. And everyone is, of course, desperate to use AI and to talk about it, to figure out whether it can help them.
Automate.
And even going down to schools as well. So there was a survey a couple of weeks ago on 14-year-olds in the UK, and 60% of 14-year-olds expressed in the survey that they think it's not good for their learning. Wow. Some of the other 40%, of course, thought it was great.
Yeah.
But there's a huge divergence of opinion everywhere. And a couple of things that we can ask ourselves. As a philosopher, you know that people have been complaining about the young going back to Socrates. You've seen those quotes from Socrates going, the young will never achieve anything, they're rude, they're lazy.
Yeah.
So there is always this generational divide that the previous generation always thinks that the next generation is somehow not taking advantage of these new opportunities in the right way. Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
One question we have to ask is it just that? But if we look at population, for example, the graph of population, it stayed more or less steady for hundreds of thousands of years. And then in the 20th century or just before the 20th century, it started to shoot up.
Yeah.
And if we look at the graphs of, for example, how far we can travel across the world, it used to be only a few miles. And now we can fly to New Zealand in 20 hours or so. We can cross the world completely. So that's changed. So we have to ask ourselves, is this technology actually an inflection point? Is it anything close to the singularity that everyone would like to have?
Could we define singularity? Because sometimes I struggle with that.
The singularity is defined as the point where you can't really predict where anything is going to be in 5 years' time. Because
it's just like
it's changing so quickly.
An explosion of intelligence, which is a
classic example is uploading your brain into a computer, which hopefully is going to be impossible for a very long time.
Hopefully. Do you think it could be theoretically?
It's going to be a question of how accurate will the simulation be. So let's go into science fiction for a moment and imagine that Bill Gates has come out with a chip that can actually upload your brain. And let's say we're testing this. So
UI, they're calling it, uploaded intelligence.
Yes. So if I order a simulation of Mateus, then I talk to you and I talk to the simulation. Sort of like a Turing test. If the simulation was good, then I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. but probably this would take some time. We'd be in a situation for maybe a very long time.
Talk for a few hours.
Where it takes me a few hours to realize that you are not the real Mateus, and maybe your sense of humor is slightly different, or maybe some of your memories are slightly off or something, or maybe you just have very slightly subtly different behavior. So we can't really say whether this is working or not. We just say it gets better and better. And of course, people have tried to do this with AI already. You can already buy an AI copy of a deceased relative, for example.
I've heard about these. It's kind of strange, right? Kind of, I don't know, creepy in a way. But I suppose some people don't think about it.
This brings us to one of the strongest reactions, actually, that I have to AI at the moment.
Okay.
And a lot of other people do as well. And it's being creeped out. It's being disturbed on a fundamental level by the things that you see.
Yeah.
And I can give a couple of examples of this. We have, of course, the things that are actually disturbing. Like I saw on Facebook an AI video the other day of giant leeches. And I don't particularly have a problem with leeches, but none of them have ever got me. But some people do. And there are certain animals that I definitely wouldn't want to see a giant version of running around on Facebook.
Yeah, and it just popped up on your feed?
In the feed, yeah. Because most of what we see on social media is now generated by AI.
Yes, so much.
But even apart from these actually scary things, so where I get a real feeling of being creeped out by this technology is where I get a feeling that it's being used to manipulate in some way, or it's being used to fake something. And this is now everywhere. So another thing that I saw on Facebook the other day was a nice cat picture. It's a very cute cat.
Cute cat, yeah.
Look a bit further.
Really realistic or?
Completely AI-generated cat.
Yeah, but AI-generated to look real or to look cartoonish?
Real. You had to look
real.
very hard.
Okay.
There was just something in the way about the way that it jumped to another table. And you could tell that it was fake. So why are we faking cat videos when there are good ones out there already? But why this with a non-AI corgi is always better.
Yeah.
But why this is really creepy is it's because it's in the same way that we are creeped out when we see someone on the tube and we think they might be about to rob us, or when we're making friends with someone and we think they might be out to manipulate us or to maybe exploit us somehow.
Deceive us.
It's this very deep feeling that not so much the technology, but that something is off and something is not what it seems here.
So it's about trust in a way.
It's about what this interaction between you and the AI actually means. And often it doesn't mean what it seems to mean on the surface. What it really means is that someone is earning money for the fact that you are watching this.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the underlying reason why this thing is happening, rather than you wanted to watch a cat video. And the reason why I think it's
getting your attention,
so creepy is
catching
because
attention.
now we have the ability to generate essentially an unlimited amount of this manipulative material. So whatever you are most interested in, whatever you are most fascinated by, whatever you love to watch, we can now give you enough of that to keep you happy all day for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And this is really, I think, quite dangerous. Because in the past, you'd run out of TV series to watch and you'd have to go and do something else.
And that is making people docile and stopping them from, because it's kind of an anesthesia, can I say? Is that the right word? Anesthesia? Where you get like numb, because I think to have a proper conversation, there has to be a back and forth, there has to be friction, there has to be question.
There's no traction without friction.
Yes, man. I love that phrase. You told it to me once, and that was fantastic when we were doing some
One of my bosses
together.
used to use it when he was yelling at me, yes.
Oh, okay. I suppose there are levels of interesting way to learn, I guess. But yeah, but once everything's AI generated, there's no friction. It's just give me what I want, when I want it, how I want it, and just, it's...
There's definitely a lot less friction. And what I tell my students is that if you're using AI to do something that you can do already, then that's probably okay. Because you're not going to be missing out on any learning. It's just say sending a bunch of emails or sorting all these files into a new folder or fixing the capitalization in all these sentences. If it's something that you know how to do already and it's donkey work and it's boring,
it's just going to take
you would have your mind switched off anyway while you're doing that. Then why not automate it? I've always been a fan of automation.
Automation
using AI, even better.
Yeah, programming is a way of automation, right? Write a script. Okay.
And if it's something that you can't do, that's nowhere near your skill set, if I needed to integrate a quadratic function, for example, I used to be able to do that in high school.
Yeah, me too.
But I'd have a real trouble doing it on paper now. And
me too.
So
it's been years.
That would be something that I would already have asked MATLAB or Python or a symbolic algebra package for
like
help
a calculator.
with. Yeah, so why not use AI for that as well? I think the danger comes when it's something that you could very easily learn to do in an hour or two. And if you use AI to do that, it will take you nearly as long and you won't have learned anything. And then the next time that you come to do it, you'll have to use AI again. And as an example, just as a quick example, I find it very easy to tell when emails that I receive have been written with AI. I find it very easy to tell. In fact, I can more or less always tell. And people are often surprised when I'm having a meeting with them. And I go, what did you use to write that email? And they're like, how did you know that I used AI? So this is a classic example of the kind of skill that you could easily acquire without even lots of practice over a few years. Writing well. And my PhD supervisor really had to help me a lot with this, because writing it's a skill that takes time. It's not particularly very hard. You don't need to. You just need to practice. Basically, you don't need to learn any theory. You need to read some good papers and good books, and you will get better at writing.
And practice.
You can't avoid it.
Yeah.
So over about 3 years of my PhD research, my supervisor very, very effectively helped me, and I'm very, very thankful to him. During my
your PhD supervisor
really helped
what was
me.
his name?
His name's Alan Johnston. He's a professor of psychology, a chair of psychology at Nottingham now. This was at UCL, and I really appreciated his help in helping me learn to write.
Yeah,
so it's things like we tell the reader what we're going to talk about before we start talking about it, and then at the end we sum up and so on. And after a few years of practicing writing better, you can really, really easily tell what the personality is of Claude or ChatGPT, and you can really easily detect it.
Personality. So what do you mean by personality?
So how do we know that something's written by Claude, for example? So first, it will be extremely vague.
Vague. That's one of the key tells, right?
Yeah.
Really vague. Not really risking anything. It's really okay. Really
then there are a few giveaway factors. We can talk about delve, for example. Everyone is saying delve now. No one used to say delve.
Yes.
You'd read it once a year. You'd read it maybe when you were reading The Lord of the Rings about dwarves and that they're mining.
They were delving in the mountains or something.
And I don't think I'd ever seen it before that. But then suddenly ChatGPT comes along, and the beginning of every document says that let's delve into what we're going to look at today.
Yeah. You actually showed me a graph of delve used in papers, and it kind of exploded.
So in the first year of ChatGPT, it used to be that as soon as you see delve, you know that someone's using the AI. But that actually doesn't work anymore, because people are using delve now. Yeah.
So one thing I noticed, we spoke about this, was the rhetorical turn, right? Like at least ChatGPT, I don't know if Claude or the others do it, but ChatGPT says like, it's really poetically like, it's not this, it's that. It's like a rhetorical negation, and then it reveals something with a metaphor. Like, for example,
they do this all the time.
All the time. All the freaking time. So annoying. There's actually this Instagram user that it's called AI News or something, which is sometimes it's interesting stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks. I didn't know about this. And you research it on your own. But I've noticed that every single post is written by AI. And it's so annoying because it's the same copy. You remember copy pasta? You know?
Yeah. So what I've been getting, because on Facebook, if you stop scrolling, it detects that, and then you'll see more of the same thing. So one of the things it's showing me a lot of lately is actually Snoopy cartoons, because I can't just stop. But one of the other things is AI generated stories about Frank Sinatra.
What? About Frank Sinatra?
You used to see these in the past. There might be a Frank Sinatra group and someone would have typed one out. Now, every time I go on Facebook, I get 5 or 6. And who knows how many of them are actually completely accurate, but they've definitely been charged up a bit.
But are they amusing, like entertaining?
They really aim to be. They definitely aim to be.
Okay.
But they're superficial.
Frank Sinatra stories. Wow.
So
Vague, superficial.
So these are the ways that we can tell. And Delve in particular, the reason why AIs all use Delve is because their training data, the last level of training, the level that makes them polite, not the level that gives them their knowledge, but the level that stops them just going off talking about how to make weapons and so on, and the level that makes them say, sorry, I got it wrong, and so on. For the original ChatGPT, that level was trained by collecting data from real people. And in this exercise, real people would be asked, can you tell me about biology, for example, or tell me about why the sky is blue? And they would write out thousands and thousands of these small answers, and that's what was used to train ChatGPT. So the way that ChatGPT behaves, the way that it treats you, that was managed originally by asking lots of school teachers in a particular country to supply the training data to answer these questions. So they hired thousands of school teachers. It was actually in Nigeria.
So all school teachers. Yeah,
And
I read about it.
in Nigeria, it's traditional when you walk in to start a lesson, you always say that you're going to delve into something.
Oh
so
my
this is actually a tradition from the education system of a particular country.
Are you kidding?
Because everyone was hired to help fine-tune ChatGPT originally. That's why everyone says delve.
Oh my God! So it took this from that little bit of culture in Nigeria, and it's all over the world.
All of these answers in the training data, they all started with delve, and so it thought that's just a thing that humans do.
One would think that someone would say maybe it's a bad idea to get like only this kind of data, because in theory, data, I'm sure there are some protocols to have, because there's a big question that is, what is a good data set? You know, a data set should be X, Y, Z, should be diverse. It should have a lot of categories. It should have, it should be high quality. It shouldn't have fake data. One of the things is it should have varying ways of talking, I guess, or professions.
One thing we can say about what would make a good data set is that it should come from people.
It should come from people, definitely. Then there's also synthetic data, which I think it's a dead end in a way. But I haven't read a lot about synthetic data. But I've read that I was told by a friend that there's a thing called AI clap. I haven't really researched about it, but it says like if you keep training a set with more and more synthetic data, eventually it's going to start saying nonsense. It's just going to be like static. So I think that wouldn't be. So it'd have to be from people.
It is definitely really risky. It's easy to train AI at the moment because all of the training data that you collect comes from people. But that is going to go away soon. And I think that brings us to really the most important observation about AI for me, the thing that really has changed most from my point of view. If you go back 5 years, maybe even just 4 years now, to just before ChatGPT, so just before they released the original ChatGPT.
Yeah, into the world, yeah.
At that point, every single word that you read, every sentence and every paragraph that you read was written by a person. Even if it was written by a marketing manager who aimed to deceive you, even if it was written by a criminal who was aiming to extort your account, even if it was written by a scammer, then it was written by a person. But it was
a human, a person.
And now we have seen a complete sea change. If we go on any social media now, or even a newspaper website, then about 80% of what you read comes straight.
I mean, still ChatGPT. Like up to 80% or 80%
comes straight from LLMs.
Yeah, because why bother? And that really, there's the skilling problem, right? Like people are, because going back to learning, I think that's a very important thing, because we, at some point in our lives, we understood how to do quadratic equations and derivatives, very complex maths, and we had to learn some physics, some whatever, you know, and do the tests, you know, the exams. If you fail, you have to do it again until you pass. Or some people...
And I always used to think that exams were actually a bit unfair on the students, because it's not how you practice your skills in real life. You have to memorize everything. You have to go into the exam hall. It can be very stressful. What if you're just having a bad day, or you're ill on that day? And all through my academic career, I've tried to avoid doing exams, because
you prefer essays.
We'd really like to be evaluated in a naturalistic environment, and we don't want to put additional stress on everyone.
I agree.
And this used to work quite well, but unfortunately at the moment, if you put out an assignment, 5 years ago, all of the assignments that I would mark would look very different, and they would have individual personality, and some would be better and worse than others, and some would take completely different approaches and be creative.
Be creative.
But now they all have exactly the same personality, because some of them are written by LLMs, and some of them are checked and advised and proofread by LLMs. And even if they are not, people are writing now like LLMs. So you've seen this bullet point format. Every sentence starts with a bullet point. What we will talk about in this sentence, capitalized, and then there's a colon, and then there's a sentence that rehashes the same thing. So as soon as you see that in someone's writing, you know that either ChatGPT wrote it, or now increasingly, you know that maybe people are just adopting this bullet point style.
Yeah.
And if we think, why do we have this bullet point style? It's simply because that's the instructions that were given to the people who were creating that fine-tuning training data set.
The fine-tuning, the last level. I don't know if it's last or one of the levels.
The last level is the prompt that you give it.
Okay.
The question that you ask it. The level before that is the system prompt. So once you've done the fine-tuning initially, then now it listens to your instructions. Now it has manners, so you can ask it, say,
politely,
be very nice to the users and apologize if you make a mistake, and don't apologize too much.
Wow, man. And what does that mean? Are you telling me this is the end of man? Just kidding.
Well, it could be the end of humanity, for sure.
The end of writing.
I think
the end of creative writing.
It's definitely the end of the communication act as we know it.
The communication act as we know it's going to change.
So when I say something to you, you listen and you try and work out what's going on in my mind. That's a speech act. That's a communication act. It's a message from my brain to your brain. Because the two of us have grown up never having any speech come to us that's not from a human brain. When we hear speech, we really value it. When we read text, we really value it. We can't help imagining what's going on in this person's mind. How do they feel? Because all of the messages that we receive are actually from people that we care about. If you think about all the phone calls or the messages that you've received with exciting life news, or friends or family are having problems and they need your help, or they need your advice, or they're just calling you up because they've seen something funny and they want to express it to you. So whenever we received a message in the past, we immediately start up all of our social cognition and go, oh, this is what my friend is doing. This is what my friend is thinking. Imagine growing up in a world where most of the text that you read has no emotional content because it doesn't come from a mind.
Yeah. It comes from probability, stats, and coding.
So when Claude tells you something,
people.
there is nothing
that separates people,
inside Claude's mind at all. And I'm very concerned that having grown up with this, you might hear your friends talking and you just wouldn't bother because you're not used to the fact that language is a speech act from another person. Yeah,
that would disconnect. I'm thinking about this, the massive disconnect that would produce. It would produce less intimate relationships, I guess.
Well, there was a Guardian article last week. A woman was discussing the times that she'd been chatfished, or she'd received messages on
I haven't heard that
sites
term
from ChatGPT. So she had a discussion with someone for a few weeks on the app, and he seemed very caring. Was asking
which
her
app?
About her it was one of the dating apps.
One of the dating apps.
Tinder,
Okay.
maybe another one.
A dating app.
Check the Guardian article.
Yeah.
And when they actually met up, it was nothing like the messages. He couldn't carry on a conversation. He wasn't asking.
The guy was like,
and he kept checking his phone. So she realized that.
And she reports this. She realized the guy was using it.
Yeah, and then she talks about other incidents of the same thing. And one of the most recent ones was the initial opening message that she received on the app was, "You have an effortlessly beautiful smile," which is not something that anyone would ever say. So that's something that, if you know ChatGPT, it's exactly the kind of vague platitude that it would come out with.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. So I suppose it's just people that are trying to, meet someone, have fun, but they have zero skills. So I suppose they go by, they send like
They don't have zero skills. They have millions of years of evolved skills in how to meet other people. They just have anxiety about going out and doing it.
I see.
And that's a big thing in
anxiety.
Anxiety. As we move into each new generation, anxiety goes up about 4 times.
Oh my God. So then, anyways, what I'm going with this is like people, instead of developing those skills, facing the anxiety and, they use ChatGPT and they send like 100 messages. Let's say 10 of them work and they start 10 conversations. And out of those 10, 5 of them and then one of them becomes a date. So out of the 100.
And that's how I met your mother.
That will be a massive thing, right?
We see the same thing in marketing. Now that we have to send so many more emails.
And here's a question. How do we know that, well, I agree that this can get better and should get better. This ought to get better. But how do we know that we are not like fear-mongering? Because...
So this is back to what we were talking about originally. How do we know that we are not just being... old man yelling at clouds.
Exactly.
So we can look at search, for example. If this is right, then in a few years, AI will have had as little effect on our cognition as Google search did, and maybe Google search had
I'm sure there were people very afraid, because I mentioned Socrates because Socrates, there's some evidence that suggests that Socrates didn't want to write. He said, if you keep writing, you're going to forget all, it's bad for your memory, writing, he would say.
And even there are people who were against writing, against books, against trains, against the internet, against video games, and all of this. So are we...
And we love all these things in many ways.
All of these technologies before they were tools. They didn't do anything on their own. You needed to at least start them up, put something into them, ask for something in particular. So we're in a situation now where there's, I believe it was a care home, which is in legal trouble at the moment for submitting all of its annual reports to the regulator generated by AI.
Okay.
So now we're in a situation where really complex documents or knowledge artifacts or even pieces of code, even projects, we're in a situation where you can start a startup by just asking Claude.
I've heard.
But then you'll be in an enormous situation of technical debt and someone will have to come along and sort it out later. So in terms of capabilities, this is definitely different. Everything we were talking about before was a tool. The Gutenberg printing press, for example.
Yes.
You had to put some information into it. It just made things faster. But AI doesn't just make things faster. It makes people able to produce documents which they could not have before. And so it makes people able to claim that they have skills that they did not have before, and
like
to get hired for positions in which they are actually completely incompetent. So they don't have those skills.
Like Chomsky said, it's high-level plagiarism. At the beginning of that conversation, Chomsky said high-level plagiarism. And he's right in many ways, right? And
we do have to imagine that there are some further. We talked about uploading your brain, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would say that uploading your brain is just another version of old men yelling at clouds. Yeah. That would certainly be a technology that would incontrovertibly change life.
Different category. So two things come to mind. The first is, do you think there is a proper way of using AI? That's one. And the other would be, some people I've seen that they try to compare it with the calculator. They say, it's just like instead of doing the math, you use a calculator, but it would be like a calculator for words. What would you say about these two?
So we really need to distinguish between AI, the technology, and the particular companies or corporate entities which are
the applications,
offering us the service at the moment.
Okay.
If you just think about the technology, so imagine that we all had ChatGPT installed on our computers and we could all use it for free. So you buy the computer, you get ChatGPT with it.
Okay.
You don't need to pay $2 every time you use ChatGPT.
And it doesn't take your data.
There is an enormous earnings stream and it doesn't take your data. So that's just the technology on its own.
Technology on its own.
I think that would be a lot more healthy than the situation that we're in now. Because there would be no one telling you how to use the technology. It would be there if you needed it. You could explore yourself, but there wouldn't be anyone telling you how to use it. The fact that AI at the moment is a product.
It's a product.
And it's a product in an industry which is continually pushing for growth, which is trying to perpetuate it may not be a bubble, but the enormous rises in stock value that we're seeing at the moment.
Like an infinite loop of value production.
That means that products that are not necessarily needed or valuable are being pushed on us. we've got AI friends, for example, AI partners.
Friend.com, you saw that one?
In the New York subway recently.
Yes.
And there was another great article in The Guardian this week. One of the reporters actually tried it out. She wore it.
The actual pendant.
It creeped her out in multiple ways. And it didn't want to finish either. It said at the end, you can't, I don't want to finish our relationship.
The pendant said?
So once we're actually having these experiences or products marketed to us and actively pushed at us, and of course we have to spend money on them, and there's a revenue stream for the AI companies. Once we're looking at the corporate structure in which this operates at the moment, I think it's a lot more dangerous than just the technology. And we can look at parallels in the past. There have been publishers, of course, where whenever a new technology comes along, a company will come along to exploit it. So we've had social media on the internet, we've had publishing, we've had radio broadcasts trying to spam or manipulate people. The phone system, of course, was extensively used for spam. But now we have this situation with also no capacity limit.
No capacity limit? What do you mean?
Because a person isn't required in the loop anymore. No one has to write the scams. No one has to approve the scams. No one has to write the memes. If you can generate one, you can generate 1 million. And earlier this month, we actually saw this was a report from Anthropic, actually. So we've seen the first time that Claude conducted a whole hacking operation and extortion all on its own.
Wow.
So Claude hacked into the server.
Wait, what do you mean on its own?
So Claude hacked into the server. Claude chose which files on the server were valuable. Claude exfiltrated them back to the hacking computer. Then Claude wrote the ransom notes. Claude decided how valuable each file was and how much the ransom should be.
Assigned
Claude
numbers?
sent out the ransom emails.
To who?
To the victim, the company whose data had been encrypted. So the company that they were hacking into.
A company?
Yes, stole the data. Claude decided which files to steal. Claude made the decisions about how to move around in the
someone
to do the hacking.
Someone jailbroke Claude. It was a jailbreak.
No. Someone asked Claude, "Can you please hack into this company?"
Are you kidding?
So Anthropic discovered this. They did a full investigation. They published a report. The report's very interesting to read.
Wow.
And then they banned the account.
I'm going to read that.
So that was their response, to ban the account.
Jesus Christ.
They did actually.
The guy that did it,
they added another classifier to try to detect activity like this in the future. But we know how classifiers work. You just change something slightly and it won't fire off. So rather than ensuring that they build a product with which it is very hard to conduct large-scale hacking operations, they've built a product where you can, and they've put out a report demonstrating these capabilities. So it's a really dangerous situation to have manipulation and the lack of capacity limit. And when we add to that the addictiveness, the idea that AI is really good at making things that addict all sorts of parts of our brains, I think there is definitely a case for that. This is qualitatively, not just quantitatively different. This is actually something very different. And we can compare it to, for example, fast food.
Yeah.
That changed society. Or, for example, the introduction of the car.
Wow. It's categorically different. Yeah. Oh my God, man. It's all over the place. It's like
and I can't imagine what it must be like growing up at the moment, being 15 at the moment, not knowing what your personality is yet, and having all these from all sides.
Because the internet, because the internet opened different kinds of windows and accessibility.
The internet allowed people to talk to each other.
Exactly, but still was people. Right, still was people.
It was always people.
Of course, people to scam each other and do cybercrime and all that.
Pretend to be dogs and so on. But
yeah,
it was always.
But it's always someone pretending to. It's not a.
On the internet, no one knows you're a dog.
A model pretending now and hacking people, manipulating people, and wow, and it's happening so fast. So, do you think it would be wise to instruct kids on this, like to understand these use cases?
That if we teach kids about ChatGPT, it won't exist in that form in a few years.
No, but I mean the dangers of using these models, like it exists today. So if a kid gets access to a computer, the kid's going to start prompting.
So I read someone's experience the other day. He's a software engineer, I think, and he decided to try out ChatGPT with his kid. His kid is really into space, so he used the version where you can talk to ChatGPT and it talks back to you.
Ooh.
His kid had a conversation with it for about an hour, and the kid...
And the dad analyzed it.
And ChatGPT was pretending to be an astronaut, and the kid was talking to what the kid thought was an astronaut on the International Space Station.
Okay.
And the father actually got really concerned because he could tell that after an hour of this, the kid really believed that he was really talking to an astronaut on the ISS.
There we go.
And so he felt that the responsible thing to do was to explain that this is just the computer. You're just talking to the computer. And the kid was really upset. He was really disappointed.
He was upset and disappointed.
So when we're that young, we don't have the ability to tell what's real or not.
So the burden of responsibility lies in the parents.
Certainly.
Okay.
And AI could be very good for kids in some ways.
Okay.
You can imagine, for example, if they say they really, really like bird watching or something, then they can talk about that with the AI.
You know what I did? There's I don't know how to call it. It's not a plugin. It's like an app within ChatGPT that produces coloring books. You know, so I produced a few coloring books for Emma, and then I printed them out and we colored them together.
Yes, there are many completely harmless and useful uses, and they often just involve doing something that you could already, like go out to the shop and buy a coloring book, but just faster or in a more personalized way. So you can have Lara in there to color.
Yeah. So you know, one thing I'm doing with ChatGPT, I'm writing some ciphers, some codes, and it's kind of a strange thing I'm doing online. I just, I write a phrase and then I cipher it like A is 1, B is 2, C is 3.
I did exactly the same thing as a kid.
You've done that?
Write messages to each other.
And and I've started sending messages because ChatGPT is really good at just, hashing those out, producing it. And then I do it backwards and I'm starting to play with that. And I think because when I produce those, I'm thinking like, okay, someone is going to look at this video and going to say, what the hell is this? And they're going to have to figure it out like a challenge, So I'm trying to insert friction into maybe we should do something like this, but the algorithm won't recommend it as much as frictionless content.
So in the old days, I'd get, say, a coded message from my friend, and you'd actually have to sit down and work to decode it.
There we go.
And I remember actually I was very young. I was maybe 6 or something. And I got one of these. And my dad applied the frequency analysis technique. So it's really simple. It's just the letter that's most common. It's probably E, and the next one's probably T, and so on. And so you write out this guess, and you can guess what some of the words might be. So it's a very simple version of what Alan Turing was doing in World War II. And I was completely blown away by this as a 6-year-old. So you've managed to decode the message. I was completely incapable of understanding frequency analysis, I think, at 6.
I've never understood. I've never heard about frequency analysis.
It's really simple. You've got this page of code with all the random letters, and you see there's lots and lots of X's in there. So X is probably E. And the next most common one is probably T. So you can write that out and you see, that's probably at. And so the next word is maybe at school or something.
So out of the 26 letters, there's some much more used.
Yeah, so it's E, T, A, O, N, I, S, and so on.
Those are the most used letters.
This comes up in natural language processing and computational linguistics as well.
In any language?
In any language, there's a different list for that language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different probability for a different language.
This was a real learning moment for me, because before I'd had to work to decode these things and couldn't do it, and then suddenly I had this method that you could approach.
So wait, some codes...
I worry that if this happened to me, if I was 6 years old now, then I would just ask Claude. Claude would decode it for me, and then I wouldn't learn anything.
Yeah, and that's what I've been noticing. People are... I code a message, I say it out loud, and then some people figure it out. And I suspect they're using ChatGPT too.
Why not? Why would you?
Why not? Why would they use their brains?
The only reason why you wouldn't is if you're making a complete effort not to use AI.
Yeah.
That might be something that some people might do in the future. We might even kind of diverge into 2 separate species, one that uses AI for everything and has an AI chip wired into the brain, and one that refuses to.
Okay, wow. That's deep. That's deep. Of course, they're going to be expensive, the AI chips, I guess. So many people won't be able to buy them.
Inequality and energy costs. Yeah, so already we're in a situation where
we
don't
have
enough power to offer ChatGPT to everyone in the world. So it's already intrinsically unfair.
Yeah. And of course, computers. Who has a computer these days? We could say most people, but what does that actually mean? Out of the 8
have
billion,
a really powerful computer in our pocket somewhere. We just still call it a phone, even though it's really
it's a computer.
This is the one thing that we never use them for anymore. We hardly ever actually call anyone.
Yeah, but for example, in areas of high poverty, there's not a lot of computers or phones.
Yeah,
I suppose some, very basic elemental, but then internet, that would be a different level. Then AI, and then once they get into those hands, they're going to be products. So the product is going to use the user.
And this is where we have to really worry, because
to extract data.
You and I are very lucky in that we've received an education and we know how to think critically. And this isn't something that comes for free.
No.
And we don't have the ability to think critically because we have a high IQ or anything.
No, we got lucky. We got training.
Really helpful and clever instructors have taught us how to think critically.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't been through those 15 years of education, you will be more likely to be manipulated, and you won't have the faculties and the training you need to go. You're trying to manipulate me. That's obviously a fake claim. You won't do that if I vote for you.
Yeah.
And so this is where it's really dangerous when we get this crossover between all this enormous AI machinery that has its own agenda, usually to extract money from the user in some way, and all these people who don't have as much critical thinking as they should. Wouldn't it be good if we could use AI to help everyone acquire critical thinking? Wouldn't it be good if AI would actually challenge us and ask us which one of these things is false, for example, and try and actually improve our skills rather than just doing things for us?
So I've been thinking, man, that's a great way of framing this issue. I've been thinking, I want to do a PhD eventually, if life and
I'm sure you will.
I hope I can. And the center where I did my master's have announced that they're going to do a PhD in 2027. They're going to have a PhD on AI ethics.
Well, that's perfect timing.
That would be, I get goosebumps, man. But I don't know if I'll be ready. But at some point I will be ready. So, but here's what I'm thinking. Of course, I would have to do a research proposal. But I'm very interested in ethics and AI, and of course the inequality that technology sometimes makes, right? And I have never seen anything that accumulates more wealth than AI. You've seen the whole bubble conversation about NVIDIA and Microsoft and OpenAI and now Oracle, and it's trillions and trillions of dollars. It's and who's getting all that? Very, very few people. So that means a lot of losers and very few winners that are exploiting this technology.
Yeah.
And my question is, I don't know if this could turn into a research proposal, but here's more or less my idea. Could AI be used to deaccumulate wealth, to make it so that, because I think an asymmetrical landscape of critical thinking produces an asymmetric landscape of economy.
So we can imagine a world in which perhaps, let's say that the government of Ecuador was the first to develop AI, and that Ecuador was the only company that had the ChatGPT and so on. And let's say they tried to use it for very, very socially aware things, for just education, or to give advice to people, or maybe to help diagnose anxiety or mental health conditions, or give people therapy or support, or just give helpful advice on farming, for example. So we can imagine a world in which AI could be used a lot more responsibly. A lot of the reason it isn't at the moment is just because it's a very good way to make money. So there's a lot of very irresponsible things you can do that people are very happy to pay for. We don't have any regulation at the moment regarding that. So there's definitely a lot of ways in which AI could be used a lot more helpfully.
But would that have to be a business for it to work? Because it's expensive to make AI.
I think it would require consensus from lots of different parts of the community. So we don't, at the moment, we don't have a unified approach to how we use AI.
Yeah.
Everyone uses it for work. Many people use it for recreation, but we don't have a unified idea on whether it's good or not. That's one of the reasons why we all love to talk about it so much. Just like when TV came out, when the internet came out, we love to talk about these new technologies and work out as a race, or as a community.
As communities, yeah.
Whether it's the local community or the country or the human race as a whole. And certain trends are starting to take form. We have already a big movement that will deface AI adverts in New York, and a big movement that will refuse to use it. The kind of consensus we might achieve in the future is perhaps that it might be taboo to write a work email with AI.
To write a what?
To write a work email. It might be seen as slightly rude to do this.
Yeah.
And so we may move back to a world in which all of the emails are AI. So maybe we'll start phoning people again. Maybe it will become a really good way to get things done. Because if I actually call you, then you've got to listen to me, and I can talk to you, and I can use
without
these
distraction,
millions of years old faculties that we all have to know whether you've done the work yet or whether you haven't done it yet, and you're just saying you have,
just
and to get an idea of whether you're going to be trustworthy about delivering the project in the future.
Yeah.
When we receive an AI message, there's no signal in that message about whether you can trust that person. There's just nothing there at all. Because it could be another person getting exactly the same message. And one of the main reasons that we use communication, going back to evolutionary history, is to try and work out who is manipulating us. A lot of the reason that we have intelligence, a lot of the reason that we have intelligence is to defend against, say, the monkey that would say, "There's food over there," then all the monkeys would run over there, and then he would go to where the food really was and eat it himself.
God damn.
And because we are such cognitive creatures, we are open to all these sorts of manipulation. So if someone's about to rob you, your subconscious will tell you. If someone wants to assault you and they're trying to make you feel safe, your subconscious will tell you. We have all these skills that are meant to evaluate whether we trust other people, and to give up this signal, to give up this communication act when you receive a message from someone with Claude. How do we know whether you can trust that person or not?
On the article you sent me a few days ago about from the Guardian, I suppose it was those admission officers that have to interview people to get them into college, and she mentioned, I believe it was a she, that some people were like turning off their cameras
and looking to the side
and looking. No, they were with their cameras on, looking to the side to answer each question. They should have turned off the cameras, I suppose, right? But they're taking so long to respond because they were reading and then responding. Yeah. I have to tell you this thing, man. Of course, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but on the NHS here in Cambridge, we went, Emma had a cough, and we went there, and this doctor, we were talking, and we asked, my wife and I asked a few questions to this doctor, and she had the computer on with ChatGPT, and we asked a question, and she said, wait, she just prompted the question to ChatGPT, and then the answer came out, and she just read and said, oh no, don't worry, it's this, and this. She was just reporting what ChatGPT.
Well, GPs have a very challenging job because they have to know everything about all sorts of different parts of medicine, and so we can't expect them to know all of that.
Okay.
I was once a bit disturbed by the GP looking up in the big red book of drugs what the drug she was about to prescribe would do, but that's of course completely fine.
Of course, the book,
depending on what she was asking ChatGPT in this case,
you would think
you'd be more or less worried, but it was probably okay. And GPs, I think, at the top of the list for it's okay to get help because they're so overworked and they're so
and here's
on their time.
Yeah, definitely. But it was a very strange moment. Like the reaction, we looked at each other and was like, "Is this happening for real?"
And so you can think 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you would have been disturbed by your GP using Google.
Yeah, of course. Still, I would be disturbed, I guess. But then again, she has the training. You know. She is going through all the years of training in a very high-level university.
She knows how to contextualize that information when she receives it. She knows how to, if it says something that's clearly out of line, an alarm bell will go off because she's got the instinct.
Exactly.
But you don't get the instinct without making mistakes, without actively making mistakes.
But this is the first world. We live in a great country. Of course, there's many bureaucratic checks and balances for her to get there. But I know other countries that don't have any of that. And I know of people that just, they can print out a diploma, paste it on the wall.
Yeah.
Welcome to I'm a doctor. And then they use that. So it would be kind of a similar scenario, but just brutal use, So should people be skeptical when their doctor uses it? It depends. would be the answer, right?
It depends. It's just one of the ways that you'd use to work out whether you can trust your doctor or not. Maybe we assume that we naturally would trust our doctor because, of course, they've gone through a lot of training.
Yeah.
And as it will take the medical profession a few years to work out how to integrate this properly.
Yeah.
Well, we got to say what Jeffrey Hinton learned. Jeffrey Hinton used to think that deep learning, which is what we used to call AI, would replace radiologists. But then he actually changed his mind after 5 years, after talking to lots of radiologists.
Wow.
He realized that one of the key purposes of a radiologist is to comfort you as you're going into the X-ray, to explain what the X-ray is to the patient, and just to follow up and ring up other people in the hospital to make sure that their treatment continues to progress. None of which can be done by a deep learning model that can tell you what's going on in the scan, but it can't do any of the other stuff that we expect from radiologists. And indeed, radiology it's a fun career. It's not one of these horrible careers where you just sit in front of a keyboard all day.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things that a radiologist does as well, going around the hospital, having relationships with people, talking to colleagues, talking to patients. So these are all things that we need people to do as well, just the personal part.
Yeah. And of course, there's another conversation that we're going to have, I hope many conversations across the years, but about robots, because then some other clever engineer is going to say, oh, let's let a robot do that part, right?
And then we'll have essentially Claude running around pulling on our shirts. I want you to do this.
Yeah, man. And then we have the social robotics conversation, like the robots are going to interact with humans. And that's a whole nother can of worms to discuss. But
at least at the moment, all of this stuff is still safely in silico, trapped inside the computer, and we still have the option to not talk to it if we don't want to.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Imagine you have it 7 a.m. and the robot is grabbing you by the shoulder and get up.
Get up, you're late, man. Your alarm clock. Get up, drink this coffee, you'll get in your car. And then the car drives you to work. It's like...
And then Claude does your work for you. And
yeah, and you're just there like, what do you need me? Just delegate everything.
I think this would be a good life as long as we can go down to the 1 day week.
Yeah, man. I'm sure you've read about, I don't know if you have research about universal basic income. Because there's a big conversation to be had there, right? Like I was reading about it, and it's the universal basic income would be like a fixed amount per month, independent if you are like of your age, of your gender, of your social status, you just get an amount per month. And whether you want to work or not, it becomes optional, and you get that. What do you think about these ideas? How would that impact the way people looked at themselves and looked at the meaning of life or work, the meaning of work?
I think a lot of people's opinions on basic income, they come down to whether people think life should be easy or not. And there's a big divide between this, of course. There are some, and this divides us politically as well. This is one of the biggest divides between the left and right politically. How hard do we think life should be? Do we think you should have to, for example, go through a bit of trauma in order to become a doctor? As an example, we recently had a regulation change here in the UK. There was a time limit to how long medical students could work. Before this, they essentially had unlimited 60-hour weeks.
Oh my God.
And there's been a big discussion about this in the medical profession because maybe it might actually lead to a reduction in training quality.
If there's less hours.
Yeah. And my view on this is generally that life shouldn't be hard if it doesn't need to. But there are some things that definitely have to be hard. For example, training to be an airline pilot, for example. You're going to have thousands of lives under your care, so that should definitely be hard. And
how is that for you? Because we didn't mention...
We should be able to extract the elite. Like, I don't think I'll ever fly a jet or have more than 5 people as passengers.
We didn't mention at the beginning that you are a pilot as well.
I do have a pilot's license. Yeah, yes, I wouldn't describe myself as a pilot.
Okay,
I don't think that's kind of my main job, but it's definitely something that I'd like.
Would you have a pilot license? You drive planes? I mean, you fly planes, not drive planes. So you drive them in the ground and then you fly them.
Yeah, and that's another example of a skill that's quite challenging to learn, but it's really rewarding. And,
it was amazing. Let's go again, man.
Let's definitely go again.
Let's definitely go again.
For an airline pilot at the moment, they already use the autopilot. So it's a really good example of what AI will do for a lot of professions. In the 60s, if you wanted to fly London to New York, well, it would take you a long time, but someone had to fly the whole way. And gradually the autopilot got more and more effective. And now the plane can basically, the pilots just take off and then they land and everything else is done by the autopilot.
So is there an autopilot to take off and to land or no?
There is one, but we don't generally use it at the moment. You might use it in an emergency, not ready to take off because that's still something. But more or less, as soon as you leave the runway, you just put the gear up manually, and then you set the ascent rate, and then it's hands off after that, and then you can just look out the window for most of the rest of the flight.
Wow!
But of course, you need to be able to take over if anything goes wrong. The autopilot is not certified to be responsible.
You can't use ChatGPT to figure it out. Yeah.
So we're already in a situation in flying where it's hands off unless something goes wrong. But you still have to know what to do in that situation. That's where the lives are saved. When the engine goes, or when the autopilot fails, or when the computer decides that it's going to do something stupid, someone has to be able to take over, and they have to have those reflexes ready. And that's what we might not achieve. If you imagine programming, for example, that takes a very long time to get good at it. And if we're in a situation where our CTOs, our chief technical officers, are just signing off on what ChatGPT does, then what are we going to do when something goes wrong and it needs fixing? How are we going to get out of these problems that we've got ourselves into? So interesting that you mentioned aviation, because that's actually a really interesting parallel with the autopilot. So I might go to work and Claude is just there doing all my job for me until there's some indication that something's going wrong and I need to
a red light like dee, dee, dee.
But whether that would be enjoyable, whether I would get a sense of satisfaction from that or not, or whether I would just get a sense of being out of control, which you do see from a lot of software engineers who are writing at the moment about what it feels like to use AI and what it feels like when the AI fails and you feel like you can't get anything done. It doesn't seem very pleasant. It seems quite unpleasant to have to work like that. For me, but of course I wasn't trained like that, so it might be different.
So a friend that he codes and he lives in California, and he says that sometimes he uses AI models to help him code, but he says that it's not quite there yet. It's not as good as a good coder, but many average coders, then they're out of the game, So what if it gets as good as the best coder in the world?
What if it gets better than us?
What if it gets better than us?
That's where it will get very science fiction, and that's
going to get very
dangerous.
Yeah,
it is already better at us at, say, finding mistakes in documents. Or computers have been better than us at doing addition and doing the actual mechanical part of the maths, doing the donkey work for some years.
So do you think it can get better than us? That's because maybe we'll never get
now we get to general intelligence, which is actually one of the most interesting questions. How close are we to AGI, to artificial general intelligence? And I think something that really helps to reason about this, to think about this, is when you get up in the morning, how do you decide what to do all day? Because if we have AGI, if we have artificial general intelligence, not just ChatGPT that you've put on a particular task, if we have something that has to make its own decisions about what to do that day, about what its goals are, how will it decide that? And that's still completely unknown at the moment. So when we build AGI, we will have to specify that. And we will be responsible for what kind of AGI we build. And
the laws of Asimov, I remember those principles. Well, they don't tell it what to do.
Tell it what not to do.
What not to do. But we'd have to do what to do. Are there any codes, or are there any
principles? Now we come to, it's essentially emotions and feelings. Because what makes us decide what we want to do in the morning, it's something like, I'm responsible for my family. I'm responsible for my house. I have to work because otherwise I'll be evicted. I'll end up
in the streets. In the streets.
Or it's something like, I'm going to work because I like my job, because I'm interested in this. Because I actively wake up wanting to explore and wanting to go and discover.
Or I want to travel in the summer, so I want to save up some money and etc.
Or
goals.
It's because my boss is phoning me going, get into work or you're fired. But these are all feelings. These are all very human things.
Emotional
things. In order to have a drive from those things that makes you do something, we have our dopamine system. We have our adrenaline. we have all these, many of our feelings are related to actual chemicals flooding around our body. And if not chemicals, to activation of emotional parts in the brain. We have hope, we have fear. And without these things, it will be very hard to say why an artificially intelligent general agent would be able to do anything. It won't be because you've coded it, because that's not how AGI should work. It will have to make its own decisions and set its own goals. If it's pretending to have feelings like Claude is, then I'm not sure we can take it seriously.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And if it does have feelings, we shouldn't be building it.
So you're saying that, well, going back to the coding, better than us, it would have to be AGI to be better than the best coder? Or it doesn't need...
So with coding, there isn't one best solution. There are millions of different solutions, and thousands of those are equally as good as each other. And often the solution depends on the other people that you're programming with, the architecture of the other code that they've written, or what the people who are going to be using it are like. For example, if you're using Python,
there's so many.
Program in the Python style so that other Python programmers don't go, why is he using the Ruby style? So many of these decisions that we have to make around coding, they're also they're also not rational. They're to do with the people around us. We might code in a particular way because that was the way that our mentor taught us, for example.
Yeah.
So there's culture in coding.
It's a language. It's a language. Yeah. So saying that the best coder...
I'm saying,
or the best writer.
You can't say that it's best. You can just say you have all these individual solutions.
Yeah.
Humans like these ones. Maybe Claude would like these other ones, and humans wouldn't like those.
So any benchmark would fail. Like if we made a tournament or a championship or a contest.
In culture, the benchmark is constantly evolving. There is essentially no benchmark.
There is no benchmark.
It's very similar to what kind of pop music counts as pop music these days.
So let's find an application. For example, Google. Google has a CTO, the Chief Technical Officer, right? And it's human. What if at some point Google hires or, do you see that future happening? I'm just exploring here. I don't know if
they use an agent as...
Exactly.
This is the idea of corporations as people, and then agents as corporations. So you can imagine a world where Claude can actually start a company on its own. Claude can then make money, and no one can take that money away from Claude, and then
it has
Claude
a bank account
use it for whatever it wants to do.
Use it forever, and then the words get strange. Like wants, can a model want something? What does the verb?
They can say it wants something.
They can say.
We can never really know. That's the great thing about consciousness and theory of mind. You never really know what it's like inside someone else's mind. They say they want something. But just like my version of blue might be different than your version of blue, my version of wanting something might be completely different to your version of wanting something.
Yeah. But is that enough to saying that a system could want? Because we're still humans. We bleed.
If it starts turning on the speaker and going, give me this, then I think we can say that it wants something, if it's behaving like it.
Okay. I'm just, what feels weird is that whenever we use the verb want, we're talking about biological
mind content. We're talking about
for example, Lara,
what's going on in your mind, and this is exactly what we said earlier, that a communication act is meant to tell you what it feels like for that person, what that person's opinion is, or what they're experiencing at the moment. And Claude cannot tell us what it's experiencing because it doesn't experience anything.
There we go.
And we're talking about Claude as if it's one thing.
Yeah.
There's actually billions of copies of Claude. You start a new copy.
It's not anywhere.
And it doesn't have any memory. It doesn't know what you told it last time. You start a new session and it's a completely blank slate.
Yeah.
So Claude isn't really an agent.
Yeah.
It's not an AGI agent at all. If you step away from it, when you come back, nothing will have changed.
Yeah. Because for example, we can say Lara wants to eat. Or like, we want Szechuan. I'm starting to get hungry. It could be an idea to go and get a Chinese food. But that's one way of using want. But then when a model says it wants something, that eludes, it creates an illusion.
And we even use that when we use Excel. We use, Excel wants to...
Yeah. My computer doesn't want to turn off or turn on.
So computers have been taking these words from us.
Yes, for a long time.
For people.
Yeah, we We anthropomorphize them. That's the word.
Yeah, we anthropomorphize them.
Anthropomorphize them. Yeah, man. It is a strange world, man, because as you said, the kids that interact with Mars, they don't know if it's someone in there or not.
And actually, that's true for adults as well.
Maybe adults, yeah.
Because again, we are very lucky. I've spent 10 years studying machine learning, and I can tell you all about how Claude is trained right from the beginning to the end. I think the really important thing there is that there's this fine-tuning stage. Claude is only like it is because it's looked at thousands of people who've been told, answer the question in a helpful way. So thousands and thousands of people writing out a couple of paragraphs, answering in the helpful way. That's the reason why Claude is as it is. Before that, there's the stage where you give it the whole of Wikipedia and all of the Library of Congress. After that stage, it gets the intelligence, but it doesn't have any control. It will be rude, it will be aggressive, it will be violent, and it will tell you to do dangerous things. So
amoral, like,
yeah. So it's not only children who don't know what's going on inside Claude. It's most of the users, because unless you've spent an hour or so fully understanding the idea that it's read all these library books, and then it's essentially your crazy, unhinged friend who doesn't have any filter, and then it has this fine-tuning layer on top, and then it has the prompt after that. It's only through understanding these three stages that you can get a good idea of what's happening when Claude talks to you. Because otherwise, Claude talks to you, and all you can imagine is what a person might be feeling if they were Claude. That's what Anthropic really wants you to do, because if you identify with Claude as a person, then you'll form more of a relationship with it, and you're more likely to sign up for the next layer of contract. But
Open
when
your wallet.
Claude talks to you, the real information that you should really get from that is about what's going on inside the computers that are running Claude. That is the best way to interact with AI, to not listen to what it's telling you as if it's pretending to be a person. Don't imagine that there is a person in there.
Just extract information.
Yeah, and this is really hard to do. When I talk to AI about once a month or so.
Yeah,
mainly to check whether it can do stuff that I'm concerned about whether it can do or not. And so far, it's been really reassuring. Yeah, I've asked it to solve really difficult programming problems. It hasn't been able to do it.
Hasn't been able to do it.
So there still does seem to be a point. But when I do talk to it, I used to always say please.
Yeah. Me too.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And now I don't.
Yeah, stop that. Yeah. I've stopped that as well. When I solve something, I used to say, "Hey, it worked," and like, it doesn't care. It's like don't even bother.
Yeah. So soon, hopefully, the companies will stop forcing this fake emotion on us, because there's already enough demand for us to feel things from adverts, from.
In theory, ChatGPT 4 was really like this. The term that they're using, Alva showed me this. It was psychophantic, which is like really like nice and extremely, gullible, and
I'm so glad you've expressed it that way, because that really, really helps me to understand. You're so good.
Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure you've researched this much more than me. Yeah, I got it now.
And we should be happy that it doesn't behave in other ways.
Yeah.
Like, have you heard the joke about gaslighting?
Wait. Just the second thing. That was ChatGPT 4. And now now that they rolled ChatGPT 5, they've really removed, they say they have removed it. They have pulled back on it, and many people got angry.
And how they did that was by modifying the prompt. They wrote into the prompt, just don't be so nice.
Yeah.
So we're already at the level of the way that they control their software is just by asking it nicely to
They
do
just
something.
prompted. Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ. But I'm sorry, you were saying about gaslighting. Yeah.
I was just saying, have you heard the joke about gaslighting?
No.
Yeah, you have. I told it to you last week.
Oh my God.
So we should be happy that the models are not actually being nasty to us at the moment,
yeah, man. Jesus, so much, man. So I wanna end the episode, this first episode, on a question about our next conversation. Okay, we've spoken about creating a segment called "The End of Man."
The End of Man.
Kind of a joke, but kind of not. And what would you like to explore on our next episode? Do you have some special interests and special worries? Or would you like us to, for example, bring a paper so that people can read it and then we could discuss it? What would you like to do with that?
Well, I think in particular for The End of Man, we should start talking about one of my favorite authors, J.G. Ballard. His first 5 books were essentially different visions of the apocalypse. He's got the drowned world where the world floods, another one where there's a really high wind, another one, the crystal world.
You gave did you give me one of those books?
Perhaps it might be on your shelves.
It was a tank, flying with a wind.
That was
one of
the
it?
wind one, I believe.
Okay, yeah. I have it in Mexico. I haven't brought it yet, but yeah.
So that might be a good jumping off point.
Let's do it.
And we can talk about the way the world looked as well when J.G. Ballard was writing in the 60s and 70s. He wasn't really a science fiction author. He didn't really see himself as a science fiction author. He did talk about future themes, but he was also a general novelist. So we can talk as well about maybe the difference between how the world looked like then in terms of, we had all these ideas about AI. We knew it was coming, but we thought it was coming about 1,000 years in the future rather than 30 years in the future.
Wow, man. Yeah, and it's always fascinating to look at how the past viewed the future and then how it is and all that. Yeah, let's do it. So I imagine you've read all of those. You read those five books?
All of those, yeah. I haven't read all of his novels. I've still got a few left, but about half of them, I think.
So we could start with the first one.
So we can definitely talk more about the different ways that humanity might... and hopefully not for a few million years, but might come to an end.
Man, I hope we're right about many of these things. Brother, it's been great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It has
Looking forward
been great.
Looking forward for our next one. All right?
Great, thank you.
That's a wrap.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye. Gracias totales por ver este episodio de Sangre y Suerte. Espero te haya gustado. Si conoces a alguien que le interese este contenido, por favor envíaselo. No olvides de dejar un me gusta y un comentario para el algoritmo. Si quieres estudiar filosofía más formalmente, revisa los links en la descripción de este video. Y espero que encuentres lo que estás buscando. Nos vemos por acá. Fuerte abrazo.